11th, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda. So moved by Mr. Hess, seconded by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes from the regular meeting of March 28th, 2019. Approval of the minutes from executive session from March 28th, 2019. We have the enrollment report from April 1st, 2019, the school police report from March 1st, 2019, the residency truancy report from April 1st, 2019. Need a motion on the consent agenda, unless anyone has any discussion. Motion by Mr. Hess to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion on any of the items? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next is a report out of the executive session meeting. There was a meeting tonight, 4/11/2019. I need a motion. There was no votes taken during the executive session tonight. I need a motion to seal the minutes from executive session.
Motion to seal the minutes from executive session.
Motion by Mrs. Waters.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is Superintendent's report, recognition assistant. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. Mr. Chairman and members of the school committee and everyone in the audience, there is some recognition that I would like to share with all of you. This is National Assistant Principals Week, and I want to identify our assistant principals, and I think it's important that I state publicly, how much I appreciate the challenging work that they do. Having been in that position for 6 years, it is one of those things that, from the minute that you walk into the building each day and the minute that you leave, it is nonstop interaction with students and staff, especially with students. And it isn't only on those, not only the responsibility that we have as administrators during the day, but there, as you all know, are responsibles beyond the regular school day with after-school activities like games, dances, proms, all kinds of activities that require supervision. So I just want to publicly acknowledge our assistant principals, Jonathan Rapport, who works, as you know, both at Community and BF Norton. He spends half of his time in each one of those places. Erin Oliver is the assistant principal for student life at McCourt Middle School. She spends a good part of her day working with students. In fact, I think she spends probably 90% of her day working with students, and also spends a lot of time interacting with parents. Dr. Susan Cody, as you know, is the assistant principal for teaching and learning. She is focused on a daily basis on all things related to teaching and learning, and spends a tremendous amount of time in classrooms. She works very closely with Mr. Damana and his team, doing curriculum mapping and all kinds of planning. In fact, there was a couple of meetings this week involving the assistant principals from the middle school and other members of middle school staff to continue the conversations around standards-based grading. Christy Patton, she is the current assistant principal of the year in the state of Rhode Island, the assistant principal at North Cumberland Middle School, very talented administrator in her own right. You have to be good to be designated the assistant principal of the year, and we're very fortunate to have Christy working with us. And then, of course, the 3 individuals who are in their, actually, one of them is in her 2nd year, but Patrick Sullivan, new to the high school this year, Heather Delfino, new in her role this year, and Kate McMorrow, this is year 2 for her. Heather being the Pathways Director, and Patrick and Kate being the assistant principals for teaching and learning. And we hear lots of positive things about the good work that they're doing in the high school related to teaching and learning. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge them and let them know how much we appreciate the good work that they do. The second item is April is National Volunteer Month. And I think it's also important that we publicly acknowledge all of the individuals, parents, coaches, number of individuals who volunteer their time to help improve the experience for students and staff in the district. You know, I know that you all, in fact, several of you have been a part of parent-teacher organizations. We have the PTOs in all of our schools, and I think you all know how much of a commitment they all make on a regular basis to support their respective schools. So, you know, I would be remiss if I did not mention the PTOs. We also know that in fact, next week you all have been invited to the Cumberland Schools Volunteers annual recognition reception that's taking place at the Cumberland Library Community Room next Wednesday. So all of the volunteers that are actively involved in creating a community where literacy is exciting and welcomed, and they encourage a love of literacy for students in the district. So that is next Wednesday. Hopefully some of you will be able to attend. We all know the significant number of individuals who are involved in the Cumberland Education Foundation. They do their annual dance, which many of you attend. They raise a significant amount of money. In fact, we just had a recent meeting. It was either, Mike, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? We had a meeting where we had an opportunity to hear from the Cumberland Education Foundation. They are going to be giving a number of grants to teachers who have applied in the district in the amount, I think it's $10,000 worth of grant money that the Cumberland Education Foundation will be generating for our students and staff. So, I sometimes am concerned that, when you start to identify certain groups that you leave some folks out. I just want everyone to know who we have lots of people who help in many ways, and I just want them to know sincerely how much we appreciate all that they do to support teaching and learning and making school a wonderful experience for the students and staff in the town. And last but not least, I just wanted to let you all know that we have started RICAS testing, and by all accounts, students are working really hard. In fact, I have received a few, and Mr. Damana and I have received a few emails from staff letting us know how impressed the teachers are with how hard students are working. I had an opportunity to read to 2 fifth-grade classes at Ashton Elementary School last Friday, and one of the things I asked them was, are you ready for RICAS? And they were all, they've been ready for a while. So they are, they're excited, and I am confident that, I think the most important thing that we can do at this point, the most important thing that we can expect is that they put forth their best effort. So we're seeing that. That's all we can ask at this time. So, and just as an aside, and related to state testing, we also, on the 9th, on Tuesday, had PSAT and SAT testing at the high school. So that is all 10th and 11th graders. So we're talking about approximately 750 students were involved in that testing. And imagine, there are approximately 1,500 students in the high school. That requires a tremendous amount of coordination, as it does in all of the elementary schools, because everything is done using technology at the elementary level, and this requires a tremendous amount of support from the IT department, and things have gone impressively smoothly. So thanks to the IT department and all that's required of staff to know how to proctor these assessments, both at the elementary, middle, and high school level. So a lot of activity, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, I just want to correct you. The volunteer recognition reception is in 2 weeks.
I apologize. It is the 24th.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for correcting me.
Next order of business is the payment of bills.
Okay,
Mr.
so
Hess.
fiscal did meet this evening, and I would make a motion to approve payment of bills in the amount of $1,227,062.81. This passed upstairs on a 2-0 vote.
Seconded by Mr. Salvatore. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is the Fiscal Management Subcommittee update. Mr. Hess?
So fiscal did meet upstairs. We did discuss a number of resolutions that will be coming up with the committee later on. Beyond that, there was nothing particularly noteworthy to note.
All right, thank you. Next is Policy and Procedure update, Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorello.
Excuse me while I break the table. Policy did meet on Tuesday night. We had a good discussion on the social media policies, both for the personnel and for the students. They were both passed by a 3-0 vote. This is a policy that we've been working on for over a year, 2 years. So it is ready to be voted on. Actually, it's ready for the first reading later on. Essentially, it just lays out some common sense guidelines as to when and what is appropriate behavior for social media. I think the best example for students would be if they were going to start any kind of a page, let's say a Facebook page or a Twitter feed to support either a sports team or a club. It needs to either be approved by the advisor or coach to be an official page. Otherwise, it would be helpful if they would really just make mention that it's an unofficial page, because they are representing the school district. And for personnel, it's really just to bring in line that if you're going to have any kind of social media presence as a faculty member, we really just ask that we're aware of it, that you represent the school as they normally would, and we would have some type of access to it. Mainly, the big thing is that just if they could use their school email address and try to maintain separate accounts from their personal accounts. This is all pretty common stuff that is happening throughout the state and probably the nation as well, as social media becomes more and more part of our everyday lives. So there will be a first reading later on in the agenda. We were going to discuss the volunteer policy, but that was tabled for a future meeting. We just have some small changes we need to make to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Next on the agenda is the Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update. Mrs. Friedman.
The Achievement and Communications Subcommittee also met on Tuesday night, and we discussed and reviewed 2 achievement-related policies, drafts of policies. The first one being the homework policy, which is determining what our purpose of homework is, what is appropriate, the maximum amount of time that homework can take, separated by different levels, K through 2, 3 through 5, middle school and high school. And also looking at things such as when can homework be assigned and when can assessments happen in school. So many things, and still much more to be discussed. But that was just for our review, and ultimately it will go to policy for approval. And the second policy was the high school proficiency-based grading policy, which kind of picks up where we left off at our last meeting in understanding the proficiency-based grading that's being implemented in the fall at the high school. So we reviewed that as well, but again, more changes to come with that, and that will also go in front of the policy committee. Our next meeting is on May 7th, and we'll be reviewing that proficiency-based grading policy again and the implementation plan for the high school. And then we're meeting on May 21st to look at different models for elementary school scheduling, potential changes. So that's my update.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Mrs. Friedman. Next on the agenda is comments from the public. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak, please come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, I'd just like to point out that our town council liaison is here, Councilor Kinch, and thank you for coming again. Okay, next order of business is public hearings. Reading of new policies. First reading, item number 1, J26, Student Social Media Policy. Mr. Fiorello.
So as I mentioned, these J26 and G17 were both passed upstairs. So tonight would be the first reading, and I would ask that both policies be read into the record. And then in 2 weeks, we will actually we'll have the second reading, and then at that time, we will be able to vote on these new policies.
Okay, so Mr. Fiorello makes a motion that we read into the record for the first reading, item number J26, Student Social Media Policy, and item number 2, G17, Personal Social Media Policy. And Mr. Fiorello says we don't need a vote, so that'll be the first reading of that. Next is item number B, reading of amended policy. Item number 3 is I-7, school volunteers, and you're telling me that's tabled?
Yes.
So would you like to table that for the next meeting?
I will table it for a future meeting.
Future.
I'll make a motion to table it for a future meeting.
Seconded by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. So we have public comment available again on these two first reading of the policies, J26 and G17, if anyone would like to make a comment in regards to those two policies. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Discussion and a vote to approve resolutions. SCR 2019-03, support of the solar power purchase agreement. Mr. Hess.
Okay, so this is an agreement that the town reached with a solar power provider that's building a solar farm in the southern part of the state. So they had asked us for support of this agreement. It will benefit both the town and the school district to the tune of some $135,000 a year on the school side, and quite a bit more on the town over the life of it. This did pass upstairs on a 2-0 vote, and I would move passage here as well.
Mr. Hess moves passage of SCR 2019-03, support of the solar power purchase agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Fiorello. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is SCR 2019-04, a contract extension with Alpha Best Education for before and after school student programs. Mr. Hess?
Okay, so our contract with Alpha Best is up this year. They have asked to come back. They did make a slight improvement to our current fiscal benefit to this. We had discussion about what they've done over the years. They've been a very good vendor for the district, and we really have no complaints about them. They've provided an excellent service for parents and students. This did pass upstairs on a 2-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. Hess moves passage of SCR 2019-04, contract extension with Alpha Best Education for before and after school student programs. I would just like to make note, it is a 2-year extension based on the documents from 3 years ago that we're allowed to do this. So it's for a 2-year extension at this time. So Mr. Hess makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Salvatore. Mrs. Waters, nodding her head.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it 7-0, so it's a 2-year extension. Thank you. Next is SCR 2019-05, contract extension with Barton Gilman LLP for legal services. Mr. Hess.
Okay, so this isn't technically a contract extension. This is an agreement extension. We do have the, I'm sorry?
Engagement.
An engagement extension. But regardless, Barton Gilman has been our legal provider to the school committee for a number of years. This is an extension with a slight increase in cost, but they have not increased over a number of years. So we did go back and forth with them a little bit, found a happy middle ground for us. We've been happy with their legal services over the years, and this did pass upstairs on a 2-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. Hess moves passage of SCR 2019-05, an extension with Barton Gilman LLP for legal services. I make note that this is a 3-year extension as well of services. So I need any discussion with Mr. Hess about this? Need a motion to approve by Mr. Hess, seconded by Mrs. Friedman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have that 7-0. Next is discussion and a vote to approve, no, I'm sorry, where are we? Item number B, discussion and a vote to rescind one teacher non-renewal recommendation. I would ask that we table this. May someone make a motion to table this to the next meeting?
Motion to table?
Motion to table by Mr. Fiorello, second by Mrs. Bernardo. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next item is discussion and a vote to approve amended policy I-7, school volunteers. That's going to be tabled to an indefinite meeting. So next order of business is new business. Discussion and a vote to approve Cumberland High School students' Eagle Scout project at community school. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, from time to time, we do have students who come before the school committee and request your support in approving an Eagle Scout project. I mean, we're actually grateful that they are thinking of us for their Eagle Scout project. And we have a young man who we know this family name and have known them for several years. Owen Nesvet is here to ask for your support in an Eagle project that he would like to do at community school. Owen, come on up to the mic.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm a junior at Cumberland High School, and I'm here tonight to seek approval for the Eagle Scout project, as Mr. Mitchell said. And so it's to build a Gaga ball pit at community school. And if you don't know what this is, it's a game in which kids go in this pit, and they hit around a 4-square ball, and if you're hit below the knees, you're out. And so I discussed with Mrs. Vaughn, we had a meeting. We discussed what a majority of what the project would entail, and so I'll list quickly what we went over. So the first thing we talked about, we went outside and we just thought that the best location, we picked out a location that would be behind the swing set because that's easy to see for teachers watching, in addition to it being out of the way of things such as plowing in the winter. We discussed how it would be completely free to the school and how I would provide all the materials and labor and everything else. We would install a little board with the rules on the inside or outside of the pit. It's a very easy game to learn, so the kids would get a hang of it quickly. I think you guys all have some pictures, I'm not sure, of some examples in addition to a possible material that could be on the ground, sort of like a rubber material, so in case a child did fall, there would not be a problem. it's in the shape of an octagon. I was thinking each side would be about 8 feet long and about 3 feet high. And so at its widest, it would be about 16 feet. I thought this would be a good game to install because a lot of kids can play at one time, in addition to it being very safe, and games start and end very quickly, so there's not much time standing around. And lastly, we would make sure there is a lower area so people of like all heights would be able to get in and play.
Anyone have any questions for Owen? Well, Owen, thank you. It was a great presentation. I see the photos here on the drive here that we have. How long do you think it'll take you to build it?
So depending on how long paperwork would take, my hope was to get this done before the end of the school year. The construction itself should only take about 2 days
Oh, 2 days.
once I get approval and materials, etc.
Okay, great. All right, so Owen would like permission to build that at the school, so I need a motion to approve the Cumberland High School student project. Motion approved by Mr. Hess. Do we have a seconded by Mr. Salvatore, Mrs. Waters. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Owen, good luck, and just
Thank you.
thank you. All right, so next is discussion and a vote to approve employment contract for the district support technician. Mr. Hess.
Okay, so this is to fill a vacated position in the IT department. This is a funded position, and this did pass upstairs on a 2-0 vote, and I would move acceptance.
Mr. Hess moves passage of discussion and a vote to approve the employment contract for a new district support technician. Do I have any discussion? I need a motion, I need a second. Second by Mrs. Bernardo, Mrs. Friedman. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is discussion and a vote to approve the appointment of the district support technician. So I need a motion to approve the contract with the district support technician. Does anyone want to mention his name now that we've passed this? Arthur Ruin? LaRue, okay.
Arthur LaRue.
All right, so the name is Arthur LaRue, so I need a motion to approve this. Motion to approve the appointment by Mrs. Friedman, seconded by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is discussion and a vote to approve the revised 2018-2019 school calendar year. Mr. Superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, every year, whenever there is a change to the calendar, we are required to submit that change to the Rhode Island Department of Ed. Luckily for us, we only had one snow day this year, so we just had to adjust the calendar by 1 day. So instead of the last day of school being, I believe it was June 12th, I know I have it here in my information, it is now June 13th. So I would request that you approve the minor one-day change to the 2018-2019 school calendar.
Okay, thank you. So I need a motion to approve the revised 2018-2019 school calendar. So moved by Mr. Hess, seconded by Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it, 7-0, so we can get that up. And I know a few parents have posting when is school ending this year, so we can deal with that. Next is discussion and a vote to approve the homeschool instruction request for the 2018-2019 school year. Mr. Superintendent.
Forgive me, I was just having a quick conversation with Mr. Hess. We're talking about home instruction? Yeah,
Yes.
there is one home instruction request, and we would ask that the school committee support that request.
So I need a motion to approve the one-student homeschool instruction request. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Fiorello. Second by Mrs. Bernardo. Any discussion? All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next is discussion on the vote to approve the first reading new policies. We actually did that up above, item number 1 and 2, so we don't need to bring those up. Those are already been done with the public hearing. Next is personnel recommendations. We have a vote on retirement of a non-certified person, a vote of leave of absence for a certified person, and a vote of an appointment for non-certified. Ms. Kelly?
Good evening. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Carlene Martin, paraprofessional at community school, with an effective date of June 30th, 2019, after 20 years of service.
Need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve that? Second by Mrs. Waters makes the motion. Mr. Hess seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next one.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the FMLA leave of absence for Heather Delfino, assistant principal and director of pathways at Cumberland High School, with an anticipated leave date of August 12th, 2019, and an anticipated return date of October 25th, 2019.
Okay, so we have a leave of absence for one administrator. I need a motion. Motion approved by Mrs. Waters, second by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. And next one is vote on an appointment.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Kristen Proctor, classroom paraprofessional in the Success Program at BF Norton School, with an effective date of April 8th, 2019.
We have a motion on, we need a motion for an appointment. Do I have
Motion to
a-
approve?
Motion approved by Mr. Fiorello,
Second.
second by Mrs. Friedman. Just one question, Kelly, is this budgeted or is this
This is budgeted.
this is budget? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Anyone have any school committee, Mr.?
Mr. Chair, well,
Yes.
actually, we didn't, I know Alpha Best representative is here, Mrs. Mutter, our First Lady as well. Did you want to come up and say anything about Alpha Best?
I just wanted to say thank you to the administration and to the school committee. It's been a quick 6 years, and we've so enjoyed being a partner with the district and look forward to another 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you, and happy birthday to your son. Mr. Adams, did you want, I don't want to exclude you, did you want to say a few words?
Are there any other members that have school committee comments or liaison reports? I just got one. We did have a Rhode Island Association of School Committee meeting on this past Saturday. Senator Ryan Pearson gave a presentation with another state rep from East Providence in regards to what's happening at the State House with different bills and so forth. And it was nice to see that Senator Pearson was singled out on the Senate side to do that, and it was with actually Representative Greg Amori. That's all I got to say. Anyone else? No? Okay, next on the agenda is, do we have a vote to go into executive session? Do we need to go into executive session, Mr. Chairman? I'm Superintendent.
No, we do not,
So I
Mr.
need a
Chairman.
motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Hess to adjourn. Second by Mr. Salvatore and Mrs. Friedman. All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you.